So, in 1995, I was going to university at University of St. Anne's to become an accountant. Now, anyone who knows me would know that that was probably not a good decision. But that's what I thought was the right thing to do. I had a passion for music, but I didn't see music as being a realistic career. And my family wanted me to get a university degree and have a job and do perhaps a little better than they had done in life, in their career financially. And so I went to university, and I focused probably more on music and fun than I did on accounting. So I thought I would take a break, and after my second year, I got an opportunity to go on an exchange program with Canada World Youth, 3.5 months in Vancouver Island and 3.5 months in Hungary. And what was awesome about it is I was surrounded by people who weren't going to school to be an accountant. I was surrounded by really creative, interesting people that had big visions and dreams. And somewhere in that 7 months of Canada World Youth, I changed all my plans. So I decided and found the confidence to say, hey, I'm passionate about music. I'm going to make music my career. I'm not going to worry about what I'm going to make, what my wage is going to be, all of these things. I'm going to focus on what I love. And I think part of it was, when you're in university and you're young and you haven't really had a real job, you don't really spend a whole lot of time working. So you're thinking about what you're going to work at, but you don't really have life experience working, and you don't realize how much 40 hours a week of your time in something that you're not really into is horribly devastating. And if you sleep for 8 hours and you have other things like feeding yourself and all these other chores that you need to do, and you really think about how much time you spend doing things you love, if you spend 40 hours a week doing something that you don't love, you don't spend that much time doing things you love. So that was a changing moment in my life where I decided I wanted to take what I was passionate about and make that my career. So the first thing is an idea. And a good idea is not that challenging to come up with. The idea is not the hardest part of making a project successful for you. What happened with me is, so the first idea was I was going to be a rock star and grow long hair and sing in a band and write a bunch of songs, and it didn't work out. I mean, it worked out for a while, but it was just a lot more hectic and challenging than I thought. So I quit and ended up in another band and did it again and again and again, and eventually I got tired of just kind of traveling around in dangerously unmaintained vans. And it's funny, like, I decided at one point I was going to take what I experienced from all of those dangerous trips around North America in a van, playing shows, and start a company to help other people that were doing that. So take my experience, be passionate about that. And that became very passionate for me, was producing records, helping bands go up and really take it to the next level. But again, that too was a very challenging task, and again, it was a failure. But in that failure was the idea that is what my career is now, which is Marcato Digital Solutions, the idea of a software to help people that are passionate and creative focus more on the passion and the creation, and have organization built in systems, since it may not exist in your brain if you're a right-brain creative person. This had been my challenge through the bands, through the record label, is you start off with the idea and you're passionate and excited about it, but then you get bogged down in all of the stuff that you're not passionate about, and you start feeling like maybe you're an accountant again, only you're not getting paid as well as an accountant. So what happens is that as your idea starts to materialize, and say you get it funded and you start to get some traction, you start building on your idea, is that you start to get phone ringing and you're getting emails coming in constantly, and people are asking you questions, and there's deadlines and there's things, and then you have Revenue Canada looking for numbers, and you got all this stuff happening, and all of a sudden you're not spending time on the passion. Now, whether it's music or running a record label or a software company, you're all of a sudden compromising the reason you got into it, and you're caught up in all the logistics. So for me, the point where I realized that this was a massive problem in Marcato was when I started getting migraines, because I'd never had migraines before. So I was driving home one night and started getting really blurry vision, which is very odd. And I just kind of drove the car home as safely as I could, very concerned, and went and talked to my doctor, and then I, told him about the migraine, and he knew, he wasn't shocked about it at all, and he started asking me questions about my life, and I was like, I get up at around 8:30, 9 o'clock, I work till, I eat once in a while, and then at some point around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, when I can no longer keep my eyes open and stare at my computer screen any longer, I go to sleep for a couple hours, and then I get up and do it again. Which I thought was totally normal. I thought that's what you had to do to succeed, and this was the challenge, and this is what you had to do if you wanted to create a new thing and make it a viable career for yourself. And he looked at me like I was insane, and it was very clear in his reaction that this was not normal, nor was it healthy. So that's when I decided to step away. I had gained some weight. I wasn't feeling that great. I wasn't really doing what I loved anymore, even though everyone else thought I was. And I stepped away from it, and it was great to step away from it, take a break, and think about it. And what I started to think about was how it's kind of gone, it kind of went wrong a little bit. Like, I wasn't doing what I imagined I was going to be, and I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. So I started to really analyze what it is I'm trying to do. And I started to figure out, started to make some rules. So the doctor helped me with this. He's like, you need your sleep, you need your exercise, you need your food. So I started abiding by that. Started going to bed earlier, eating normal meals, became active physically again, started doing some exercise and stuff, and started taking some time and hanging out with friends and family and not just be working all the time. So that solves one problem. I won't have or should have less migraines, and it worked. But now I still have the other problem. What about all these things going on in this passionate, creative business that I've created? How am I going to deal with that? So the first thing, and through this process of figuring it out, it's a lot of trial and error. When you look online or you read a book about how to manage your time, how to be successful, there's so many theories and perspectives, and I think ultimately everybody has to sort of go through this search internally and find what works for them. So what was really key for me is if I'm going to spend only 40 hours a week in my business, and I was going to maintain some of that time for creativity, I needed to focus my goals. So instead of jumping on every opportunity that happens, I needed to define what is it that I'm really trying to do? What are the key metrics? What are the things that are important to me and to my business and the reason I'm doing this business? And write them down, and when you get too many of them, start sort of narrowing it down and really focus. And this focus is great, because then what happens is every day, instead of having this insanely long list of tasks that no human could ever do in a day, what I started doing was taking everything that I was asked to do or thought I should do or that was part of my plan and my goals, and I would always challenge the task against the goals. So in doing that, you ask yourself, is this going to help me achieve the goal? And then you prioritize the task. So through a process of prioritization, you end up with a list that's in order of priority. So you start taking the things on the bottom of the list and you just don't do them. So you're doing less, but you're doing the important things. So instead of doing more, it's not about doing more, it's doing the things that are really going to make a difference, the things that are actually going to be impactful on your mission. So then in that, there's this question of self-control and balance as well. So what I found worked really well was to get up in the morning and have a scheduled period of time every day where I did the things that I knew were really critical, and also the things that I wanted to do the least and get them done right away. Because otherwise they're sort of in the back of your mind and you're thinking about them, and that impedes in your creativity when you get to the creative process. So first thing would be to get in, do all of this intense work, shut the door, put on some cool tunes, and just zone in and nail those things and do them to the level that they need to be done. Don't waste any time. Get them done at the level they need to be done. And then in the afternoon, I would start doing my more personable things that I liked more, like meetings and chatting with people and phone calls and things like that. And then you get all that out of the way and you have the late part of your day to be creative, knowing that you've just done a whole lot of great things. So, and maintaining control is challenging because every time somebody asks you to do something, when it's something kind of neat or cool, instant reaction for me has always been, yeah, I'll do that. I want to do that. It's going to be great. And you can even you start deceiving yourself because if you go back to your goal orientation and look at what your goals are and say, well, this thing here, maybe it's not really going to help you, but you kind of start convincing yourself that it's going to help you way more than it is because you want to do it and you're flattered to do it. And so the challenge of maintaining control is a never-ending battle that I fight every day and every time something lands on my desk or somebody asks me about something. Because essentially, when you decide to not work for someone, you decide to take your project and make that your career, you are the boss. And that sounds great. Like, a lot of my friends are like, oh, you can do whatever you want. Like, let's go to the beach tomorrow. You don't have to worry about work. I mean, you can do that later, right? Sure, I could do that. And this is the challenge, because you could do that. You could abandon things. So you need to learn to be a good boss to yourself. And initially for me, it was just beating myself up, making myself work too hard, compromising my health and my sanity. And then to learn to be the process of learning to be more disciplined, but more precise. Less things, more focused, do less things better. In the long term, it actually makes so that you get more things done. So one of the biggest things that helped me in this process, and it's something that I really took seriously in Marcato, because I think I had failed enough at other projects to realize that I'm not a superhero, and I need other people to help me, and other people's wisdom, like people who have been through some of these experiences, maybe different perspectives, and get some ideas. So I surrounded myself by amazing people, mentors and advisors, and when I think advisors, I think you find people that have a skill set that can help you do things that you're going to need the skill set for that you may not have that yet. And that's great. Mentors are deeper than advisors in the sense that mentors are not necessarily there to help you with a specific thing, like how you're going to structure your compensation program of your company or something like that. They're more the people, for me, it's been the phone calls that I can make when I'm losing my mind, when I've lost control and I'm being a horrible boss to myself, and I need the reality check. And it's when you find the right mentors, it's amazing. It can make you stronger than you were. It builds you and it creates the strength. When your passion starts to grow, it grows in areas that you are not yet experienced to handle. So you need people that are going to be able to lift you and carry you, and you will grow through that experience. The other great thing I found for inspiration and focus and being able to sort of see the forest through the trees is to step away from what I did. So for me, around migraine time was the idea of kind of diving into the ocean and figuring out how to surf. Now, I was horrible at it. I just kind of get slopped around in the waves and get held underwater for really long periods of time. But in that, I was so filled with sometimes fear, but adrenaline, that during the entire time that I'd be surfing, I wouldn't be thinking about anything to do with my company or none of it. So stepping away from surfing, it was like you press a little reset and you walk back in. And it's amazing, like if you're constantly obsessing about something all the time, it's very hard to see little things that you're doing wrong over and over and over. You just kind of, it's like when you're writing a paper, you want your friend to read it for you because you may not see a spelling mistake or a grammar error because you just kind of went through it and you're just so into it you can't see through it anymore. So stepping away is very important. And then the big part is, and this is what I think of in the way I work now, is the essentials. So I spoke a little bit about this, like sleeping is really important. Eating is critical, right? And so is spending time with your friends, and so is exercise and going for a walk, and these are all essential and critical things. And at one point I realized, when I looked at where my objectives were at Marcato and realized that I had reached those objectives, but at that point when I'm like, wow, I reached those objectives, but I didn't reach where I want to be, because as soon as you get to where you think you want to be, then there's a whole other vision and it keeps growing, and you want to be somewhere else. So you're never going to be on top. This idea of like, work really hard now, once we get there, then we can, go to the beach and life will be great. The reality is you might never get there. I don't think I'll ever get there. It's going to be ongoing forever as long as I'm alive and doing things. I'm going to be working on my project and passionate about taking it to the next level. So success is not how much money is in your bank account when you die. It's that you can navigate a passionate career with balance and happiness and fulfillment. So don't wait till you're 70 to go to Europe. Go to Europe now. Take the breaks. Make the space for yourself to fulfill yourself, because the climb is ongoing and it never ends. And the key and critical point and objective of balance is that your success is the enjoyment, the fulfillment, and the growth emotionally and also career-wise and in your art or your creativity. It's a constant journey. It doesn't end. And for that reason, I hope in listening to this, anybody who is thinking about jumping from their safety net of their full-time secure job and diving into the world of creation and building their own careers can take something from this and my journey, this presentation, to look and consider these elements before you get to the point where I did when I was 20 pounds overweight with migraines, losing my mind. It's much easier to learn great practices and great processes before things get too mad. So I hope you can take some of that with you. Thank you.